want to take you through a creative process we call Othello Thugs. When we initially adapted Othello, we wanted to capture the battles that are spoken about. We wanted to see them physically, but within our context, it was not about ships at sea or proper war battles. It was about running battles in the street. It was about gangs, about immediate violence. One of the things we were particularly keen to capture was the peculiarities of mass movement, of how gangs move, how they attack each other and how they are repelled by each other. We looked at CCTV footage of football gangs and football hooligans, people fighting in the streets, not particularly for the violence, but for how they moved, how those attacks ebbed and flowed. So this wasn't going to be about a stage fight. It was about capturing something quite different. This process culminated in a scene where we see the gangs fight in a car park. But I want to forget that for now. I want to take you right back to those early stages when we were exploring the potential of this movement. The first building block we explored was trying to find that unison of the crowd. But it's not a precise unison, it ebbs and flows, and it feels quite natural. So let's take it right back to such simple basics. This is your first building block you want to explore. What I want is people behind me, and all you're going to do is just try to key into my movement. Just get a sense of how I'm moving. So as I shift this way, you follow, and I shift that way, you follow. As I take a step, you move with me. So what we have is a rough unison. We're all kind of in the same place, but we haven't rehearsed it to within an inch of its life. It's still alive and in the moment. Okay, so we're going to start here. Everybody kind of key into the person at the front here, and Ollie's going to lead the group. It's really important to think about sending and receiving signals. That's how you stay together. So now, let's bring it nice and tight. Ollie, you can now bring your hands into it. Let's see whether you can get a sense of those hands moving. Try not to look at Ollie, just sense his movement. What we're going to do now, we're going to shift our bodies. And you might find something strange happening here because you're nice and safe following Ollie. But if Ollie shifts his body this way and you're all following, Kirsty might find that she's the leader, but it quickly becomes Hannah. Okay, this is really important that we're receptive to who's leading. There's a very simple rule here that if you can't see the rest of the group, then you might well be the leader. And so don't feel isolated by that. Don't feel insecure about that. Take comfort in that. Confidently send and receive signals. So if Hannah is here, you're following her movement. So if Hannah lifts her hand, you'll go. But if Hannah decides to turn, she might send the signal and it goes all the way around the group and ends up with Joe. Joe's leading. That's good, that's good. Let's just keep that going. Sending and receiving the signals. Just make sure every gesture that you're making is sent with that signal. And careful not to step forward because that confuses the group. Hannah's got it, good. Sent it. Already there's something really interesting about this movement, but just remember it's building block 1. You're just trying to get that sense within the group of how to send signals, how to receive signals, how to understand when you're the leader, when you need to follow. It's an incredibly important exercise and it can be of value throughout all of your work. But for now, it's just the first building block on this exploration of how gangs move.
You know, what's really tricky is to not look at the person leading, to keep a sort of wider field of vision.
Yeah, and that's what I think makes the movement interesting because it's not pure unison. You're not looking at dance, you're looking at something much more amorphous, you know?
Yeah.
And organic, as much as I hate that word, it is that, you know. What you might find from building block 1 is that we've all become floaty dancers, and that's fine, it's absolutely fine. There's something quite beautiful and hypnotic about that movement, but remember the context. I want to explore how a gang moves. So I want to bring that focus back in again. I'm going to get the group looking forward, and we're going to make it much more naturalistic. So it's actually just about these smaller signals, maybe walking, but keeping that focus out there. For the group actually out there. Okay, good. So keep going. But what we're going to do is find different people leading. But instead of the group turning around, it's just going to be somebody walking forward. And when they get in front, they are then the leaders. And we need to respond to that. Already there's something really interesting in that. And remember, it's just building block 2. You could take all of that movement, that style of movement, and explore it, create it for something else. But remember, I want to focus on the movement of gangs and of the violence and the ebb and flow and posturing of that crowd. So I want to take it in a slightly different direction. Okay, so back to the context I want to explore. I'm talking about these gangs. I'm talking about the movement of crowd and the sudden lurches forward and the attack. And I just want to get a little bit more of that into it now. So it's not quite so soft. What I'm going to do is split you into 2 groups. So can we just separate into 2 groups? Actually, why don't you come in, first group here, and just, it's now going to have a little bit more of this kind of attack to it, okay? So it's harder to stay together. But first of all, let's start a little bit softer, okay? So we can go to the world that we had, first of all, where we're connecting, and then it might be about there. Just a little burst forward and repel. Think about those crowds facing off each other where it's all posturing, and then somebody comes forward, the gang scatters a little bit, but then they all, whoa, come back again, okay? And the same rule that if I'm here, and say Matt comes forward and bursts forward, I'm now following Matt. So Matt's in control. Yeah? And what it presents is not perfect unison, but a sense of it. Okay, let's have a play. Try and keep the focus out here if you can. Even if you're moving that way, keep your focus out here. Okay, I want group 2 to come in now. Group 1, keep going. Nice and steady. Send signals, guys. It's very shuffly. Send signals. Give each other a chance. Group 1 can go. Send signals. We're not sending signals at the moment, not giving each other a chance. Calm it right down, calm it right down. Connect. That's it, that's it. Good, good. Really nice, really nice. When you started, you came in, it had this kind of frenetic energy and there was no connection between you. So I didn't get the sense of you as a group, and it took a while for you to actually key into each other. But when it did happen, it was beautiful. You know, some really lovely surprises. But it's just an example of what can happen actually when you move through the building blocks. If you forget the previous building blocks, you forget what you've learned, it can just dissipate, it can just disappear. So it's really important to keep remembering connection, but also how you connected. You sent signals, you received signals.
I think it's really interesting. I think it makes it easier if you can just, like, knowing where people are, not being afraid to have a hand on a back, or, you know, just to let people know you're there, because otherwise I feel like feet get tangled and things like that.
Absolutely, and it makes it more real. Yeah. It feels like it's part of the context. If it is about moving and you have your hands on, because you are literally, you're literally kind of taking the strength of the person in front of you as well. You know, when they're doing that, you are kind of connected and you're saying, I've got you. So we understand the group and how it moves. So I think that's what we'll do. We'll just have a quick go at that again, and you have permission to be in contact with each other as well. That's good, that's good. I would always suggest before we do anything, we just make sure we're connected. Keep it simple and then move forward. Connect. Try and keep the focus directly out here, that's it. It's so easy when you start to make work and you get excited about it that you throw away those fundamental things that you've learned. If you see it happening, call it out. That's what the building blocks are for. We can always go back without destroying anything. For the next building block, I want to take that sense of group movement and then put it in opposition to another group. I'm not making it explicitly about a fight, I'm still exploring the movement. I want you to just pull back on the movement slightly. It's just really about this tension. I don't want anything too big, but you are now facing that way, you are now facing that way. Let's not make it a kind of sharks and jets face off. Look beyond them. Let's make it a little bit strange to start with, okay? So your focus goes through the group. It's the same rule, just a little bit softer, that you're moving. And I'm going to use this line on the floor here so that you stay here and you stay there. But I'm going to say cross the line at some point, which doesn't mean you all cross, you'll run at it. It just means you are free to do so at some point, which means the groups will pass through each other. Just be careful. That's why I want to pull the movement back a little bit. I don't want anyone to get trod on, but you're going to have to just work your way around the group, but keeping your focus beyond. And we can cross the line. Already there's something interesting in the way the two groups are moving through each other, and it throws up accidental choreography. The great thing about accidental choreography is that you can then look at it, reclaim it, fix it, make it yours, claim yourself a genius. You've set some choreography. But I want to take it in a different direction. So the next building block requires me working with individuals and them setting some movement. What I'm going to get you to do, if we start with Felipe, it's the same kind of movement, but you are just going to set what it is. So having instructed Felipe to create a short string of material, I've now asked the other performers to find their own movement. What I'm going to do once they have theirs is I'm going to bring it all together and they're going to learn each other's. What I'm going to ask now is for Felipe to teach the other two his movement. And it's really important that he does that at a steady pace, but picks out real minute detail as well. And the others, they just follow. We just start to learn what that move feels like, and then we start to work on the detail.
That's it.
Yeah, you have that little drag, little hesitant moment with your right foot,
Great.
where you're almost thinking about going forward, and then taking the weight back just creates that little movement in the chest. The others will teach their strings, which means that the group of three now have a much longer string of unison. Once they've created this string, they're going to find that the people who made the particular string might not be at the front anymore. It might push them to the back, somebody else might find themselves at the front, so we need to keep the rules that we had before, where the person who is at the front has the confidence to lead the group, otherwise it will look wrong. What they need in each of these moves is clear leadership and conviction. I've asked another group of three to do exactly the same thing, and this is something you can do with a much bigger class. Just split people off into small groups, creating strings of material separately, and then you've got so much different material to bring together afterwards. Right, the next building block. We've got 2 teams of 3 now. They've both made their material and we're finding out how they might slot together, trying to find that ebb and flow of the crowd, the attack, the repel. It's creating a bit of random choreography. We look at it, what works, what doesn't work? How can we make it safe? How can we repeat it? How can we take ownership of that choreography? Okay, so you've seen how we've taken the idea of crowds and how they move, their potential violence, and we've found the choreography within that. We've explored how people lead, how people follow, how we send signals, and how we receive signals. And we've built up some choreography based on some building blocks. But just because it was heading towards that violent world of gang fights, it doesn't mean that that's the only thing the choreographer can do. And it's often useful to take that choreography and just cleanse it of its meaning. Just make it feel different. And for that, I've just asked the performers to stick to the choreography, but just keep looking up. Just take all attack out of it. And what happens might just be a silly piece of nonsense. It might be a bit of fun, but it might also reinvent the choreographers completely. So we've gone through the various building blocks of this creative process. And remember, it's called Othello Thugs. So it was always about building towards this fight scene in the car park. Now, over time, that process that we went through became more and more overtly about the fight. We started to put elements of stage fighting into it, and the scene itself has developed over various productions. What you can see is the complexity of the current choreography still has its roots very, very much in those simple building blocks that we explored originally.